If you're over 40 and feeling stuck and wondering why suddenly everything seems so much harder, you're not alone. And despite the way that you might be feeling, it has nothing to do with you having a lack of discipline or willpower or motivation. As a Mayo Clinic and board certified health coach, I can tell you that there's nothing broken about you. What's happening is most likely this has more to do with your capacity than your capability. When we're in midlife, and I'm with you, I'm 54, there's so many more expectations than there ever has been on us. And we're carrying so much more than we ever have. We have our career and we have our kids we're raising and caring for aging parents. And maybe there's some identity shifts too. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a job loss. We might be facing grief. There's all of these things that are usually happening all at once in midlife. And you hear the phrase of being a midlife crisis. And I don't know if it's necessarily a crisis, but it's definitely a crossroads and it can be heavy. So today I want to share a framework with you that I learned at Mayo Clinic that I've been using for over a decade to help people increase their capacity. Because I always want to remind people that it's not so much that you're not capable, but you simply may not have the bandwidth to do it. It might be about capacity. So I want to share with you 3 things that you can do to increase your capacity. Maybe get back some more of that energy and that motivation that you feel like you might have lost. So let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so capacity booster number 1 is something we call biographical reframing. But what I want you to do is we want to have you really be intentional about what is it that you're saying to yourself, because words matter. And what is it that you're ruminating about? These stories that will go over and over again in our head about all these things that maybe we need to be doing. What I want you to do is just pause for a moment and look back on your life in a time when you had a challenge that you were facing. Now, obviously, you got through that because you're here, right? So I want you to think about reconnecting with your strengths. What strengths are just innate, you couldn't help but not use those when you were facing those challenges? What were they? Reconnect with those. What were some traits that surfaced that got you through? Now, inevitably, you learned some skills when you went through that as well, and you can use those skills now here today. But I think sometimes what happens, well, not sometimes, a lot of the times, we will ruminate and go through these stories over and over again on things that seem overwhelming, and they're not helpful, and they drain us, right? And they get us more narrow, and we want to expand our bandwidth and be able to increase our capacity. And one way to do this is really remind ourselves indeed what we're capable of, and maybe make some fun affirmation. If you got through that, you can get through this. Something where you can remind yourself indeed that you are capable. The second way to increase capacity is what we call resource mobilization. And what this is you may have a bunch of resources around you that you're seriously underutilizing. So say that I asked you right now to look around and to come up with 3 resources that are around you that you could be using that you're not. What would you say? A lot of the times people immediately think about a person, that there may have been someone who offered to help out and you didn't take them up on that offer. And as a Gen Xer, I get it. It is difficult for us to ask or receive help. So that's something that you could work on. That's definitely a skill set that we need to get better at, right? In midlife. But it's one of those things where it's not only necessarily a person, maybe a good friend that you've had, but I think about my sister. My sister passed away when she was really young from lung disease. So she was 53, and to me that's very young. And the majority of her life, she carried around this oxygen canister to be able to breathe. And so it limited her sometimes physically of what she was able to do. And both my sister and I are super techie. And one thing that I really loved about my sister, what she did is years ago, before it was really popular, she would be online and utilizing kind of like micro communities, if you will, and different forums. And she was not only so good about reaching out and connecting with people and having a community that way, but she would actually start some of these forums too, to be that resource for other people. Or I think about my brother who passed away from pancreatic cancer. I remember late in his journey, I found the PanCan network. And I remember being so energized after a conversation with them because they had all of these resources for me to help my brother, nutrition or clinical trials or things like that. And my brother was 51. He was also very young when he passed away. But I do remember things like that during his journey where there were resources that are out there that maybe you're in the same boat. Maybe it's not a medical diagnosis that you're facing, but there might also be other resources readily available for you if you take the time to seek those out. The third way to increase your capacity, to run your bandwidth, is work realization. And what this one means is you got to take an honest look at everything that's on your plate, which I know your plate is full. And take an honest look, though, one of the things easiest to do for the third way to increase your capacity is to delegate. So that might be uncomfortable for you, And even though somebody might do something not as great as you, what can you delegate? But more importantly here, what I would ask that you do is you take an honest look at everything that's on your plate, everything you're trying to do, and adjust and adapt your expectations of what that might look like right now. You're going to want to match your tasks that you're taking on and committing to with what you currently have the ability to do. Again, not so much the capability. It's not that you're not able to do some things, but we're talking about you working within the constraints that you have as far as your time and your energy. And when you do these things that I'm talking about here today, you do feel better and it will increase that capacity. But if there's something that seems really overwhelming, look to simplify that project. So if it's something really big and you keep spending your whole time looking at the whole picture, take a step back and look at what the next step might be. Adjust that so it's smaller and it feels more doable. Use those resources that we talked about increasing capacity in number 2. The first thing, look at the strengths. What are some strengths that maybe you're not using? Some different skill sets that you've learned that you can use here when you're looking at all the work that is on your plate, and try to strategize in ways to simplify or make that a lot easier for you. Oftentimes we just don't do that. We just keep accepting all of everybody else's responsibilities too. We just keep putting more on our plate instead of looking at ways that we can increase our capacity or ability to do these things that are important to us. So those are the 3 things. There are a lot more I could share. If this is something you are interested in, let me know in the comments for sure of what resonated with you. Was it the strengths? Was it something where you can maybe simplify, like the work realization, or maybe it's the resources that you know that you're resourceful and for some reason you just haven't been able to use those resources available to you. So I appreciate you letting me share this with you. I wish you all the best and I will see you next time.